There's one thing you'll notice about common people, worldly people. When you operate in natural, real freedom, as Christ intended, I'm not talking about following religious rules or following the Torah or following these Christian values that many Babylon churches are preaching. I'm talking about when you operate in true autonomy, natural autonomy. I'm telling you, common people will freak out because they're used to being controlled and to control others. There are even people that claim to follow Christ, but they still haven't unlearned this controlling attitude. In the past, when I began this YouTube channel, I used images from Google, just Google them, and I would put them in Windows Movie Maker, and I would speak in a message. For example, there was one video about hypnotic states. You can find it if you search in my older videos, in which I've explained what hypnotic states are, and I used the image of an alleged prostitute to do it. I knew probably it was an actress. Now, that method was a bit unconventional, but it worked. Later I stopped doing that because some people kept associating other things that I didn't intend, neither that I said in the videos. But I did it my way, and I didn't violate anyone. But folks always had something to complain. And they began to complain about my style, how I deliver the messages, and all of that. But then I began to realize, hold on a minute. Why aren't they complaining about those Babylon churches that deceived them? Why aren't they complaining about the education system that indoctrinated them and made them vulnerable to predators? Why are they complaining to the mainstream media that bewitched them all day long? And it got through to me. Common people want to be controlled. And as an excuse, they want to control others. That's how they are relieved. When you operate in real autonomy, I'm not talking about recklessness, in which you are a danger to yourself and others. When you operate in real autonomy, common people can't handle it. And there are believers who are so worldly minded that can't handle it either. Now, over the years, I made plain on this channel that I don't belong to any religious institution. I don't belong to any religious group. I'm just free. And that freedom is intended to glorify Christ. Of course, I regard the interests of others and the weakness of others when it's proper, but folks cannot just expect things that they can't account for and expect me to just comply. That would be them putting me under the spell of slavery. And I've encountered that a lot. There were times I read comments on some videos. This is way back. But I sensed that there was some negative tension behind the one that wrote the comment. Even the way the comment was constructed, it felt more like an allegation or accusation than that it was just a comment or a question on something. That's why I installed on this YouTube channel that comments had to be approved by me. And when I saw accounts dropping comments that didn't add up, or I saw persistent accusations, I just blocked them. I have a whole list of blocked accounts. Because this is what those trolls do. Whether they're paid shills or they're just people venting out frustration, they have their bondage that they're in, they don't want to face. So they want to face the fight to be free. But then they say you operate in real autonomy. So instead of them being inspired and themselves looking for deliverance, they choose to remain in frustration. But they don't want to face frustration, so they dump it on you. And one way for them to dump it on you is by leaving negative, dark comments to either distract you, the one creating the content, or those that follow it. So they want to spread confusion to others, the confusion they're operating in. And I'm not allowing that. Look, just because I'm a believer doesn't mean I should agree with the ways of believers. Because believers have many ways they haven't examined that are not in line with Christ. There's a way that seems right unto a man, but the end of it are the ways on to death. Satan has deceived many believers into many ways that don't add up. But because it's backed up by Bible verses and has been preached by Babylon churches for generations long, people think that when you're a believer, you should be associated with that. They think when you are a believer, you ought to belong to a Babylon church. You ought to belong to a routine going there every Sunday. Or because you're a believer, you ought to avoid certain things. Now, there are things you should avoid as a believer. But why do you avoid them? Often believers can't explain it, just avoid it because that's what they've been taught. They don't examine things. And that's idolatry, when you just do things because it's just the way it is without you examining why. If you can't explain why, then there's a problem there. Of course, as a believer in your autonomy, you consider the interests of others, but only in line with Christ. And that's what Apostle Paul meant when he wrote this to, I believe it was the Galatians, that the Galatians were made free, but they allowed themselves to be captured again. They allowed themselves to be bewitched. Now look, there's a difference between you getting along with your environment. There's a difference between you bearing with others. That's also something you ought to do as a believer. But when you endure things or bear with things, it should be to later bring greater glory to Christ. If you endure certain people who are slow-minded, it's only because they're receiving seeds of the word, and later those seeds will grow to glorify Christ. What you shouldn't do is put up with people bewitching you and binding you. Because that is what common people will do eventually. They will bewitch you, bind you, to dump their frustration on you. And because they themselves have no intention in looking for long-term solutions for all parties involved. They don't. If they did, we wouldn't have the world the way it is right now. So, beware that no man or woman bewitches you. Because they'll do their best to bewitch you, whether consciously or unconsciously. You remain Christ-centered, so always look at the bigger picture and be at peace.